What is up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Danny Show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and this is where I give commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. Before I get started, thank you guys so much for joining. And before I tell you why I'm here, tonight, WWE SmackDown comes to us live from Chicago, Illinois, which is why I have a Chicago hat and a SmackDown shirt. But speaking of SmackDown, or should I say Chicago, let me just say that hometown here of Chicago, CM Punk, watch your back. Because even though Drew said he quit, I got a strange feeling that Drew is up to something that is going to get CM Punk talking or get him to respond in a way that's going to build up for their feud when CM Punk is cleared to fight. So watch your back, Punk, because I know Drew is up to something. He's not really quitting. He's up to something. But let's get down to why we're here, because since SmackDown is going to be from Chicago tonight, I came up with this idea where I am going to give you guys a review on my top 10 favorite matches to take place in the city of Chicago. So let's get started. At number 10, we have Evolution versus Shield 2 at Payback 2014, a no disqualification elimination tag match. We saw Seth Rollins dive off of the Titantron, not all the way from the top, but part of the Titantron. We saw Seth Rollins dive off of that. We saw an amazing match just like Extreme Rules 2014. Unfortunately, the next night, Seth Rollins would turn on the Shield and break them up. But this was the last time we would see the Shield united for a long time, and they would have a great match, wiping out all members of Evolution. Not a single elimination from the Shield. And also, fun fact, everyone wants Roman, and remember, Roman did most of the work, eliminating 2/3 of the Shield in this match. Or Evolution, excuse me. Next at number 9 we have the Rated R Superstar Edge, aka Adam Copeland versus Mick Foley, in a Rated R match that took place at WrestleMania 22. It was big time and hardcore. Falls Count Anywhere hardcore match. We saw barbed wire, we saw thumbtacks, we saw a mandible claw, Mr. Sacco wrapped in barbed wire. Fun fact, I actually own the WrestleMania DVD. And this was a match where the highlight was the end when Edge, with help from Lita's attack and table setting skills, Edge would spear Mick Foley through a flaming table, causing special guest commentator and ECW's voice, Joey Styles, to go for his famous line, "Oh my God!" Next on this list at number 8, we have Chris Jericho versus Chicago's favorite wrestler, CM Punk, at WWE Payback 2013. This would be the second time that CM Punk and Chris Jericho would face off in Punk's hometown of Chicago. The first time was Extreme Rules 2014, which is why I might have to do a part 2 of this someday. But this will just be part 1. You can consider it that. And this was great. CM Punk came back. These two had an excellent match. Although this time Chris Jericho was a face, so Chris Jericho had a small population of fans that liked him. But you can never beat CM Punk population-wise in his hometown, and he did. And there were a couple of moments during this great epic match which I almost think was better than the Extreme Rules one. But this match was so great and so epic. There were moments that Paul Heyman, who was the manager of CM Punk at the time, was worried. But nonetheless, a GTS put him down and Paul Heyman, the Wars, can finally be at peace. The only thing I will say this for humor, Hall of Famer Paul Heyman was managing Punk, and I know Punk was happy about one thing, that Paul Heyman never stared at him to death like he does Roman Reigns. I think Roman Reigns is taking a break to do whatever it is on film that he's doing, and the fact that he's tired of Paul Heyman staring at him to death all the time. But nonetheless, another great one. Number 7, we have the Men's War Games from 2019. This would see all members of the Undisputed Era face off against Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee, Dijakovic, if I'm not mistaken, and if my memory serves me correct, I believe that is everyone. And of course, special guest, Kevin Owens. Yes, Kevin Owens would decide to be the special guest team ally of Team Ciampa. Team Ciampa came out with a mask that looked like one of the members from Slipknot. And speaking of Ciampa, after Kevin Owens got an amazing ovation from Chicago, Tommaso Ciampa would end this match by taking Adam Cole to the top of the cage and going for what Sheamus would call white noise from the top of the cage onto a table, winning the War Games for Team Ciampa at NXT TakeOver 2019. Next on this list, we have the next night. We would have, for the first time ever, at number 6, the next night, 24 hours later, we will see the first ever Survivor Series triple threat match between Team Raw, Team SmackDown, and NXT Black and Gold. Raw consists of Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, and of course Kevin Owens, amongst others. SmackDown would consist of the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns, Corbin, who no one could stand at the time, and others. Now, NXT consisted of many men who we now know today on the main roster. Ciampa, Priest, Walter. By the way, Drew McIntyre was with Raw. But as I was saying, Priest, Walter, Ciampa, Matt Riddle, and Keith Lee. Great NXT stack up. And this was a great NXT team, and all 3 teams were great. How did Walter become the first person to get eliminated? That didn't make sense. How does somebody who is the longest reigning NXT UK champion and undefeated in WWE NXT UK be the first to be eliminated? That didn't make sense. Let Corbin be the first to be eliminated at that time. But that didn't make sense to me, first of all. But nonetheless, what would make sense is that at the end of the match, it would come down to Keith Lee and the man we now know as the Tribal Chief himself, Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns would get the fall for Team SmackDown. And even though NXT won the event by score, that night, with Roman Reigns being the ruler of SmackDown that he has always been, won the match for the team. Next on this list, speaking of NXT UK, we have at number 5, Pete Dunne versus Tyler Bate at NXT TakeOver Chicago 2017. During this match, mid-match, the fans would give an ovation to these guys, and even though Pete Dunne was technically supposed to be heel, I believe, many fans gravitated to him with the Bruiserweight chant, as well as to Tyler Bate. This match was great. Tyler Bate was the champion. However, after a couple of high-risk maneuvers, all it took was for one running dive over the top rope to go wrong for Pete Dunne to land his finisher and to become WWE NXT UK champion. But this match was epic. And this was an NXT UK match taking place on an NXT US platform. Next at number 4, we have Team Cody Rhodes, which consisted of Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and the returning Randy Orton against the Judgment Day. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Drew McIntyre was in that match as well, because Drew was fresh in heel mode. Of course, it was a great team. First of all, Cody and Seth had a great team together. And of course, the highlight of this match would be Randy Orton giving JD McDonough a super RKO as he was tossed from the top of the cage into Randy Orton's RKO. When are you high flyers going to learn? You don't high fly with Randy Orton. Ask Evan Bourne, now known as Matt Sydal. Ask Rey Mysterio. Ask Chad Gable. Carmelo Hayes. You don't fly when facing Randy Orton. And if you ain't learned that yet, you never will. But nonetheless, it was after that, Cody Rhodes would get the pin for the team. But it wasn't just that made the match so special as Survivor Series Wargames last year, but it was what happened in the post-match situation, because this is where CM Punk would return to the WWE for the first time in a decade. This was also the night we got to see Seth Rollins lose his cool and drop a whole lot of profane words while giving the Stone Cold Steve Austin fingers to CM Punk, which you did not see on camera. This was something that a fan had to capture because professionally they could not show this. But the fans went crazy in Chicago for CM Punk returning. Now, more business on Cody and Seth Rollins. Next on this list at number 3, we have the 5-star match between Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes at Hell in a Cell 2022. This match took place in Chicago at the Hell in a Cell match. But what made this so interesting was that this happened when Seth Rollins tore his muscle right around here and still managed to compete. Obviously, his torn bicep muscle would be, I hope I said that correctly, but his torn bicep muscle would be the target of Seth Rollins, as well as with sledgehammers, kendo sticks, and Cody Rhodes survived going through tables. And let's point out the fact that Seth Rollins came to the ring wearing an attire fitting of the American Dream Dusty Rhodes with the polka dots. And so Cody Rhodes decided to pay homage to his father, whereas Seth was mocking scriptingly by bringing out the bull rope, the same bull rope that he is known for using at times. Dusty, I'm speaking of. And so this match would end up being a classic in the third match in all the matches that Seth and Cody had. But just like Batista versus Triple H, Cody Rhodes would have a clean sweep against Seth Rollins. Ironically, both matches started at WrestleMania, then happened at Backlash, then happened inside Hell in a Cell. Cody and Batista would make great friends because both of them have that in common. Now, Seth would have something in common if Seth and Cody ever go one-on-one at WrestleMania and Seth wins. This will probably happen if Cody Rhodes turns heel, like The Undertaker says that Cody would do well at. Now it's making me think. But nonetheless, that match belonged to Cody Rhodes. A clean sweep for Cody, just like Batista did against Triple H. Another classic at number 2, we have Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13 with Ken Shamrock as the special guest referee. Because Bret Hart had developed a huge habit of complaining too much, but rightfully so because he had been cheated out of a lot of matches during interferences, as well as the recent promo where he cussed Vince out, saying frustrated doesn't describe this. This is utter BS. It would cause a 50-50 ovation as Stone Cold was really getting over with the fans. And so at WrestleMania, it would be a 50-50 support group from the crowd in Chicago. And of course, this would be an amazing match. They fought in the crowd, but the highlight of this would take place at the end of the match. As Bret Hart had Stone Cold in the sharpshooter, Stone Cold was bleeding, and we saw the famous picture of the Stone Cold face bleeding, refusing to quit while in the sharpshooter. And also, it was a submission match, but Stone Cold never submitted. In fact, Stone Cold passed out from the pain, but refused to tap out. And one of the most iconic WrestleMania segments or WrestleMania matches that took place. Also, Bret Hart, being very bitter, would turn heel that night and attack Stone Cold, pushing Ken Shamrock to pull him off. Shamrock at the time was not in WWE, but was well known for being in the Ultimate Fighting world. Now, this would also be the match where we would see things like we see today. Whereas Rhea Ripley is supposed to be heel and Liv was supposed to be face, the fans kind of turned it around. This happened at WrestleMania 13, and they were the first to do that type of stuff. Have the fans turn it all around, and the fans decided who was heel and face. At number 1, we have CM Punk versus John Cena at Money in the Bank 2011 in one of the most one-sided fan support matches ever. It was 5-star. It was amazing. Of course, Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis tried to pull off a Montreal cheap job in Chicago, which I believe would have made fans riot like crazy. It would have been worse than Scotland. Scotland was angry. Chicago, it literally would have been a riot. Stuff would have been thrown around. I guarantee. I believe that. But nonetheless, CM Punk came out to a huge ovation. His entrance in Chicago with this Fire Burns was awesome. The match in itself was awesome. And though John Cena was supposed to be face, he was in enemy territory, seeing as it was Punk's hometown. And it would end up, after John Cena took out John Laurinaitis, which we all agreed on, thought was cool, he would be distracted enough for Punk to go for the GTS and win the match, and CM Punk would leave WWE for a good handful of minutes with the WWE Championship. Now, that is my first top 10 matches of WWE in Chicago. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What was your favorite match that happened in Chicago? And that's part 1, because there have been a lot of other great matches in Chicago, including Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano as an honorary mention. We saw Undertaker and Kane with Stone Cold as the referee. But let me know from this list which one was your favorite. And I'm your host, Dan Cody. That's all time I have for you today, and I'll be back with another review on all things wrestling. Peace.